Bitcoin, not crypto. That's the lesson. I think this week highlights the contrast between the virtues of Bitcoin and the vices of crypto. And it illustrates the wisdom of Satoshi. So if we go back to first principles, the entire Bitcoin movement got started because of a loss of faith in the currency and a loss of faith in banks. And so this has gone on since time immemorial. Banking crisis that froze customers' funds, and currency crisis that collapsed their purchasing power. And Bitcoin was created as a currency that couldn't be debased, running on an open network so you could be your own bank. And the principle is, if you're your own bank and no one has discretion to debase the currency, then you're not going to wake up one morning and find out that your funds have been seized and they've been devalued to zero. Crypto and the entire movement is almost like the reinvention of fiat currency and fractional reserve banking. But instead of it being in a regulated environment, it's just in an unregulated environment. So ironically, we saw the same human behaviors here. A human being creates a wildcat bank, unregulated. Then a human being creates their own currency, like the FTT token. Then they issue a bunch of it. Then they start to leverage it and borrow against it. And then at some point, they start to misuse the funds of their customers in their bank. And they use it to prop up their currency. Eventually, the currency collapses, the bank freezes its assets. People who had trusted the bank lose their assets. People who had trusted the currency lose their purchasing power. And so this is a teachable moment, because the solution is, don't put your value in currencies that are controlled by human beings. You can't trust the CEO, you can't trust a company, and you can't trust a custodian. And if there's a counterparty, it's credit, it's not money. And Bitcoin is nobody's liability. There is no counterparty. Anyone that joins the network is their own banker. The reason it's money is because no human being or no organization has discretion over it. So, and if anything, all of the Bitcoin memes have come back to life. Not your keys, not your coins, constant. And don't trust, verify. And it's sad to say that this is an incredibly expensive lesson in basic fundamentals of monetary theory and banking, and a principled way forward with your investments.
Michael Saylor speaks on the crypto meltdown due to the FTX blowup, and he holds nothing back, speaking on how this is a teachable moment for the industry that only highlights the positives of Bitcoin and the downfalls of crypto. Within the interview, Saylor gives his thoughts on Sam Bankman Fried, if crypto is holding Bitcoin back, and what his biggest lessons are as an investor and a leader in the crypto space. Make sure to stick around to the end of the video, where Saylor issues a huge warning for Ethereum and every crypto in the top 50 outside of Bitcoin, and also his outlook for the entire market. Also, only a small percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed. If you enjoy finance content, consider subscribing or liking the video. It's free and you can always change your mind.
I think he got caught up in this entire crypto wave, and it was much bigger than him, and everything happened very, very fast. And in this particular case, it's still not even clear to him what happened. He'll probably register this or figure out what happened some number of years afterwards. The humility of Satoshi is the observation that no one can carry the burden of that trust. Satoshi can't, no company, no board of directors, no government, no political process. At the point that you conclude that no one has the strength of character and wisdom and commitment to carry the burden of a billion people's money, then you realize that the solution is put the control of that into the hands of nature. Submit yourself to nature's laws and to the laws of mathematics, and then put it into the hands of a software that's not just a software program running on a machine, but a software protocol running on millions of machines. And so if you can create a fair, equitable, trustworthy, rational software protocol, if you can release it as a virus to millions of machines and hundreds of millions of people, you have a chance. You have an opportunity. It may work. And Bitcoin is the first example of a successful monetary protocol that was released. And in the first year or 2 or 3 years, it could have been smoshed out of existence or could have failed. And now we're fortunate enough to actually see that it has grown to maturity and it is working. And it is the best choice in this crypto carnage. And for those who have clear vision and they can see through the sound and the fury and the chaos, they'll see that Satoshi was wiser than they realized. Satoshi said something very seminal at the very beginning of this entire movement. The root cause of all these collapses is the trust that is required, and that trust has been betrayed over and over and over again. You know, the FTX collapse isn't the first collapse of a bank. It won't be the last collapse of the bank. And until human beings develop the humility to realize that trusting the bank and trusting a fiat currency was the mistake in the first place, then they won't transcend and evolve beyond this situation. I think that Bitcoiners have had a very clear vision, and that's because they move forward in a principled fashion. And if you didn't buy the altcoins, if you didn't put your money in a crypto exchange, then you didn't fall short. You did the best you could do for yourself, for your family, for your friends, for your followers. There's been a never-ending campaign on behalf by Bitcoiners to convince people not to trust, run your own node, take responsibility for your own actions, hold your own keys, support an ethical, decentralized, fair, transparent protocol. And I would say that we can look at it as we failed because we didn't convince everybody in the crypto world to adopt Bitcoin, but you can also look at it as we succeeded because we got the most number of people and the most amount of money to adopt Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still the dominant crypto asset network in terms of number of holders, in terms of value, and in terms of the amount of value stored on the chain. And so, although we haven't convinced 100% of the people to agree with us, we've convinced the most of the people to agree with us. And this week is another educational lesson. As a newcomer to the space, I've only been in it for about 2.5 years, I observe that we are making great headway with mainstream investors and mainstream media. And we're also making great headway with the crypto bros. You know, all the crypto degens, everyone that said, I got to trade this altcoin, or I got to trade on that, or I need leverage. And they made fun of the Bitcoin maximalist and the ones that want to self-custody. And I think that now you won't find anybody in the crypto industry that would make fun of Bitcoin's principled approach.
Right.
And I think that if you go on CNBC and you look at the conversations are clearly, we can't really be trusting these wildcat, you know, Wild West crypto casinos, and we need to be more responsible. The industry needs to grow up. I think what surprised me the most is fairly intelligent people and entities not realizing everything I just said to you fast enough. For example, it seems quite evident, I didn't have a penny on FTX. I wouldn't invest a penny in FTT, right? I mean, from the very beginning, if people that have any business acumen or background, any legal sense, any ethical training, or any technical training in a university, if they would look at this, they would say, yeah, it doesn't make sense to invest in 20,000 random tokens that get spun out of nowhere that trade on an opaque offshore exchange with nearly infinite leverage, right? Doesn't make sense. But it surprised me that so many otherwise intelligent people put so much money into these things. People will literally lose $1 billion chasing after these crypto casinos before they'll put $1 million in Bitcoin. They're, you know, it's just fast money, borderline greed, I guess, thinking that somehow Bitcoin is too straightforward an idea. It's like Bitcoin is too honest, too ethical, too rational And so the conclusion is I have to skip over that and I have to go for the next thing, the next Bitcoin or the next good idea. That's what surprises me, that people with billions of dollars in education that should know better, when they're granted something which is ethically sound, technically sound, economically sound, and the first perfected money and the first truly open, fair, decentralized monetary network in the history of the world, when they're staring at it, their reaction is, it's too boring. How do I take another crypto risk? I guess it just takes, these billion-dollar blow-ups of Celsius and Voyager and FTX for some of them to start to get the idea that Bitcoin is the innovation, and they should come back to basic first principle. At the end of the day, if you simply said you're not a commodity unless you're an asset without an issuer, it would knock out the top 50 coins other than Bitcoin, and every institutional investor would say, I get it, Bitcoin is special. Bitcoin is a commodity. Ethereum, Solana, Ripple. You name every other coin that ever had an ICO, every coin that ever had a pre-mine, every coin that has a centralized foundation, a management team. Every other coin would be deemed as a security, and as a security, they would all have to make fair disclosures. When they made those disclosures, 95% of them would collapse. A few would be left, and people would say, well, this looks kind of like a tech stock. And then they go, well, maybe I like the tech stocks better. Probably they'll collapse. I don't know what's left, but I mean, the argument in favor of a digital security is, wouldn't it be great if I could issue it faster and it traded 24/7, 365? And maybe the idea of a security circulating on a mobile network outside of the control of the 20th century banking system, maybe that's a good idea. But on the other hand, probably the digital security I want is Apple, as opposed to, all the crypto securities that are out there. I think Bitcoin offers hope, and I've said this many, many times. I dedicated hope.com to all things Bitcoin. If you live in a system where the fruits of all of your labor are converted into a currency which is debased, inevitably, continually, and going to zero, you're just overcome by despair, right? And the amount of despair, the degree of despair, is just a function of how fast the currency is collapsing. And when you live in a nation where they're living under 100% inflation per year, you realize that everything you do and everything you're going to do is going to be siphoned away from you, right? And it's just hard to be happy, and it's hard to pursue happiness. You could almost say your time horizon is shrunk, and the financial discount rate has got to be equal to the inflation rate. So when the discount rate is zero, when the inflation rate is zero, the discount rate is zero, when your money will last forever, which is what Bitcoin is, then your hopes, your aspirations, and your horizon is forever. And I could say to you, well, I get up every day to make Bitcoin a success because I know even if I fail, then I will leave a legacy, and someone 1,000 years from now will be happy that we made this work. And to the extent that I'm able to siphon energy into Bitcoin, then whatever that supports is going to continue. So I'm pretty energized by that. If you take the other extreme, when the inflation rate is 100%, that means that everything you're doing is getting cut in half every 9 months or every year, depending on how you do the math. Your time horizon is 36 months, I'm gone from this earth. It's almost like you're given, a terminal diagnosis. Okay, but it's worse than a terminal diagnosis because it's not just that you'll be gone, it's that your entire state will be gone. You don't even get the ability to write into your will, take care of my family and my friends, because it's all gone in 36 months. So in the absence of Bitcoin, in the presence of a collapsing economy, you're just overcome by despair. And in the presence of Bitcoin, it's like the sun comes out and there's light and you can see a path to happiness. And the network is greater than you, right? Bitcoin is an ideology, it's a network, and one of the most profoundly ethical things about it is that in the pursuit of making it successful, you're helping not just yourself, but you're helping a lot of people you don't even know. In Bitcoin, you even have the joy. I'll give you an example. If you took all the money in the world that you had, right, and you invested it in a boat, and you took it out in the open ocean, you caught in a hurricane, and the boat sinks, and you die. In the fiat world, that is a disaster and a catastrophe. But in the Bitcoin world, if you invested all your money in Bitcoin and you died, and your private keys went to the bottom of the ocean, you've just made a contribution of your entire estate to the rest of the Bitcoin community, and everyone else is that much richer. And so it's the ultimate charitable pursuit if you were to simply go to the grave with your keys in your head, because you have contributed to everyone that was on that journey with you, pro rata, in an ultimately fair fashion. And if you're not sure, right, instead of like you're a batshit crazy relative taking your money and wasting it on derelict pursuits after your death, you've actually contributed your wealth to the most honorable, ethical, responsible people that may not even be alive. Someone that'll be born 100 years from now will benefit from the fact that you simply took your Bitcoin keys to the grave. It's the ultimate privatization and decentralization of charity. Instead of having some virtue signaling charitable organization saying you're not a good person unless you give us all your money so that we can use it after you're dead or while you're alive, which is just, just more of this unwarranted seigniorage. Instead of that, Bitcoin basically privatizes virtue, privatizes charity, decentralizes all of these things so that you no longer have to depend on the government to think you're a good person. You no longer have to depend on a charity to think you're a good person. You can just be a good person on your own by running a node, holding your key, stacking sats, and going about whatever you want. And that I just see